theatricality and deception. Powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are initiated.
I'm super excited!
Welcome to Fake NASA, an all-new Conspired Deception original series, where we don't just accept what we are told, we look past the story that's at hand, where we ask questions and look at the facts. Today's topic is a very important topic. Is weather control possible? I used to laugh about this subject. Until things started to not add up. And until the winter storm of 2021. Then, I started to do research. Started to dig deep. The Texas storm of 2021 started to open a lot of people's eyes. Things did not seem right, and they did not add up. The underlying truth about the Texas storm is found with the before action of the storm. The truth is, Texas lawmakers wanted to separate itself from the United States after all the corruption in the election and the shutdown of the economy. Just so happens at the same time the United States got hit with one of the worst snowstorms in over 100 years. The government used Harp, NASA's cloud machines, and cloud seeding to control the weather. They stopped Texas in their tracks. Now they are forced to ask for help from the same government that is destroying the rest of America. It is March of 2021, and as far as I know, they still don't have any water or electricity. Not only did everybody's water pipes bust and flood the house, it froze over. Everybody's house in Texas right now looks like the inside of a freezer box. Was the Texas storm controlled or just a big coincidence? The residents of Texas is posting videos of this fake weather, fake snow.
Is it turning it black on there? Huh, we got some of that Joe Biden snow up here too.
Now, the citizens of the United States have caught on to this fake weather. Everyone else is also posting videos of this fake snow. I myself even posted a video of the snow melting right outside my home in southern Illinois. Check it out.
This is what's being left behind as the snow melts here in southern Illinois. It looks and feels like a spider web. I am 33 years old, and just hearing about snow mold, that's not real. This weather is fake.
Is weather control possible? The answer, yes. And it is connected to go as far back as World War II. Here's some quick history of how this unbelievable process was started.
This is the history of human weather modification. During World War II, too many British Air Force pilots were crashing while trying to land in heavy fog so thick, some crews just ditched their planes in the sea and parachuted out rather than landing blind. So scientists came up with a plan to install gasoline pipelines along both sides of the runway and ignite them to create huge rows of flame, which then evaporated suspended fog droplets, allowing the Allied aircraft to locate the airfield and land safely. In 1946, techniques were developed that triggered rain and snowfall in places that wouldn't have gotten any otherwise. This became known as cloud seeding. It works by dispersing dry ice, salt, or silver iodide into clouds to alter their microphysical processes. In the early 60s, the US government began testing cloud seeding on hurricanes to learn if it was possible to weaken them. Rocket canisters of silver iodide were dropped from aircraft into the storm's eye, and gun-like devices mounted on the wings also sprayed the stuff onto the clouds. Initially, the tests seemed to work. Wind speeds were cut, and in some cases, the hurricane eye walls even fell apart. But as observational technology improved and more controls were carried out, the hypothesis was invalidated and the program was canceled. In its desperation to win the Vietnam War, the Americans turned to weather modification to make it harder for the enemy to move throughout the region by inducing heavy rainfall to muddy or destroy their dirt roads and trails. 47,000 canisters of silver iodide were dropped over North and South Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. Some areas supposedly saw their monsoon period extended by up to 45 days, but just 2 days after the New York Times exposed the program, it was discontinued. Operation Popeye caused the USSR and US to negotiate a ban on the military use of offensive weather modification techniques in 1977. But the treaty didn't stop countries from using cloud seeding against themselves, as the Soviet Union did in 1986 when the Chernobyl nuclear disaster sent fallout into the sky. Civilians on the ground and the Russian pilots who carried out the mission have confirmed that aircraft flew overhead, ejecting a substance into the clouds. This resulted in heavy, black-colored radioactive rain to fall in Belarus instead of onto the Soviet capital, Moscow. Today, 37 countries are operating weather modification programs to enhance rainfall or suppress hail, or both. But nobody does it quite like the Chinese, who established the Bureau of Weather Modification in the 1980s that's now a 37,000 people strong sort of weather national guard, ready at a moment's notice to operate the more than 4,000 rocket launchers, 7,000 anti-aircraft guns, and 30 aircraft to trigger downpours in drier areas that really need the rain. The Bureau's highest profile operation was keeping Beijing's Bird's Nest Stadium dry during the opening ceremony of the 2008 Olympics. The following year, the Bureau dropped 186 doses of silver iodide into a cold front to bring drought-stricken Beijing its earliest snowfall since 1987. A Swiss company took advantage of the United Arab Emirates' desperation to bring rain to its arid lands by building 10-meter-tall electrical towers that produce negatively charged ions that, according to the company, supercharges the formation of rain clouds. But a former chairman at NOAA isn't buying it, saying, quote, "This method is inherently incapable of producing clouds out of thin air," end quote. The thing about weather modification is that it's hard to prove it works. But based on the results we've seen and the number of countries still doing it, man's effort to control precipitation isn't stopping anytime soon, even though we have little understanding of the unintended consequences. If this video opens...
When I think of weather control, I think about just throwing a cloud in the sky and making it rain. It sounds cool, but in all reality, it's not that simple. It involves 3 different scientific inventions and steps to create and control the weather. It involves cloud seeding, lasers, Harp, and creating weather patterns and clouds. So advanced now that they can even control and create storms, tornadoes, and hurricanes. Don't believe me? Look it up. There are people being interviewed and mentions of weather control in videos that can be traced back to being posted 10 years ago. In fact, here is a news clip that was posted 7 years ago, talking about weather control.
They were talking about climate change yesterday, and now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right, lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. CBS This Morning contributor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at City College of New York. Professor, nice to see you. Extraordinary seeing Al Gore and Bill Clinton there together with Charlie, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, they did not get into this discussion, though. But it is fascinating. I mean, lasers, really, to change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. This is potentially a game changer.
But this is experimental.
It's experimental. However, in the laboratory so far it works. When you have water vapor and you have dust particles or ice crystals, you can precipitate rain. It condenses around the seeds. These seeds can also be created by laser beams. By firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, and these ions act like seeds, like dust particles, bringing down rain and even lightning.
Go ahead.
Well, this fascinates me in part because, too, I remember reading the stories that China had used this during the Olympics, that the USSR had used this after Chernobyl to create rain clouds. I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War, to wash out the Viet Cong. Governments have been playing with this thing.
Alleged to.
Alleged to, right.
Yeah.
Now, we realize that for decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather control, but nothing conclusive. This time we're bringing in the laws of physics rather than simply waving our hands and uttering mumbo-jumbo. We're actually using trillion-watt lasers now. And in the laboratory, sure enough, they precipitate rain out of water vapor. Sure enough, you can actually bring down electricity down the beam.
So what does it mean for drought areas that need to have rain for crops, and if they don't have them, there's the consequences of famine?
Well, the bad news is if it's a clear blue sky, it's not going to do anything at all, because it only takes water vapor that's already in the air and condenses it. However, for floods, for agriculture, farmers, for people planning wedding parties, football games, you name it, outdoor events and agriculture and flooding and even hurricanes, all of them could be subject to weather modification.
Incredibly interesting, Professor Michio Kaku. Thank you so much.
The man in the video is referring to NASA's experimental signaling machine called Harp. If you haven't heard of Harp, you need to look it up. It's crazy. It's pretty cool stuff, but it's just one step to the three-step process of controlling the weather. Next comes cloud seeding. Never heard of it? That's okay. Here is a quick summary on cloud seeding.
Let's talk about cloud seeding. It's described as the enhancement of natural precipitation. To explain how cloud seeding works, we need to first talk about clouds.
Clouds are a bunch of water droplets or ice crystals floating in the sky. The water droplets are too small to fall as precipitation, but they are large enough to form the clouds we see. In most parts of the world, these droplets are supercooled, meaning they're below freezing, but they remain liquid. Now, sometimes these droplets are just milling around, pushing past each other and not sticking together, kind of like a missed connection. Other times, these droplets bump into each other, like commuters on a train during a busy rush hour. The water vapors collide and stick to particles floating in the air. It could be dust, smoke particles, or even meteoric debris. Those are known as condensation nuclei.
So cloud seeding can produce what we want more or less of, more snow, more rain, or smaller hail pellets. This is done by introducing a seeding agent through pyrotechnic flares attached to an aircraft. Think Roman candles with a mission to deliver those condensation nuclei that encourage more collisions and group huddles by ice crystals inside the cloud. Common seeding agents used are dry ice, the solid form of carbon dioxide, silver iodide, or simple salts like sodium chloride. Seeding agents act as additional ice nuclei. In the case of silver iodide, its structure is very similar to ice, hexagonal, which is why experts think ice wants to bond to it. When silver iodide is used in a cloud, water droplets begin to give up water vapor and shrink. At the same time, the ice crystals already present in the cloud collect this moisture and grow. As ice crystals bang into other ice crystals, they become larger and heavier until they fall from the cloud. So why would we even want to do this? Who does it benefit?
In the wintertime, increase in snowfall is a very significant value add to organizations like hydropower companies.
Idaho Power Company, for example, is interested in having more snowfall during the winter because this produces more runoff in the springtime for hydroelectricity. Wineries, such as ones in Mendoza, Argentina, have also used cloud seeding to protect their vineyards from damage through hail suppression. And lastly, insurance companies like ones in Alberta fund cloud seeding projects in order to lessen damage claims they receive. So how much does it cost? Well, the cost can vary. Hail is the most expensive. Rain projects, less expensive, running $200,000 to $1 million a year, and that might produce an extra 1.5 to 4.5 meters of snow in the mountains, or an extra 50 to 125 millimeters of rain in the summer.
And you compare that to what is in the market price for water, or comparable technologies in creating more surface and groundwater, that is desalination, groundwater recharge, some of these, or even building dams and infrastructure, we're a fraction of that cost.
So now that we know how it works, here are some myths busted. Why don't they cloud seed to extinguish forest fires? Because you can't create rain with cloud seeding. You can only enhance clouds that are already present. Can cloud seeding resolve droughts? Not really, because all precipitation requires clouds. If it's already dry, there won't be enough moisture to rise in the air. No clouds, no extra moisture, no chance of enhancement. However, what can be done is to increase snow production and rainfall when there are clouds to work with. In other words, it needs to be preemptive. But does it work? In 2008, Beijing claimed that they made it rain early with cloud seeding to ensure blue skies with the Olympic opening ceremony. In contrast, the American Meteorological Society released a statement in 2010 saying there's still uncertainty whether current cloud seeding techniques actually work to achieve the desired changes in precipitation. According to the World Meteorological Organization, 52 countries have a weather modification program, and many of them continue to boost funding for such operations, all in an effort to perhaps one day control the weather.
Very interesting stuff. But we aren't done yet. Let's learn about the last step involved in this complex process. Let's discuss the cloud machine. This one blew my mind because NASA has lied to us about its real intentions. Doesn't surprise me though, because the Hebrew definition of NASA means deception. But here's a quick video explaining the NASA cloud machine.
However, NASA does need to test these engines once in a while. So they built this place in the wetlands of Mississippi. The first thing they installed was a huge loudspeaker, through which they played white noise to simulate the sound of a rocket. They then sent a number of trucks in different directions out into the wilderness, and the drivers were ordered to stop when the noise levels became acceptable. This gave them an imaginary boundary line, and anyone living on the inside of it was offered a simple choice. Stay, and you'll never hear another television program as long as you live. Or take the NASA shilling and get out. No one stayed, and NASA ended up with exactly what it wanted. 125,000 acres of nothing. They even had to move 5 cemeteries, because the noise they were planning on making would wake the dead. Don't worry if you can't hear what I'm saying. I couldn't even hear myself. This is the loudest sound you could possibly conceive. And, as it turns out, the cleanest. Now, the most amazing thing is that that cloud up there, which was generated by the engine, is just a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. It's water vapor. And in about an hour's time, someone in Mississippi is going to get wet washing. It will actually rain.
So is weather control possible? Well, yes. Is it a simple process? No. But it can be done. I want to thank you guys for joining me on this Conspired Deception original series.